Hello and welcome everybody to Revive Stories. It's so good to have another episode of what has been a fantastic series. We're so grateful for everybody who's been watching, sharing comments, and we really hope that these stories have been inspiring you and encouraging you. Today we've got another amazing guest. We've got Penny, who's been a part of our church for a long time. She's got an amazing husband, Jason, and two awesome kids. And Penny's going to share a little bit of her story today, which we're so grateful for. So Penny, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing? Are you well?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Hope
Lekker.
I don't disappoint.
No, never. Penny, so the interesting thing about Penny is that we always put her on the spot to do filming stuff, or we definitely have, and she's always just been amazing. So she shouldn't be surprised that we've asked her to do this. Penny, thank you so much for joining, and you might have seen and watched a few of the videos, but really Revive Story is just about sharing a story, and I'd love to find out a little bit more about your story. So maybe we can start kind of in the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What was kind of early memories of childhood? What was family life like? And then we'll start chatting a bit more about church and God.
Okay. I have a wonderful family. I grew up in Joburg, and my dad was actually a pastor, so I'm a pastor's child.
What? I didn't know that.
I'm the rebel, and my sister was the good girl. So we didn't get on too well because I just wanted to, break all the rules, and she didn't. So, but my dad was a lay pastor, but always, in business and busy in the army and all sorts of other organizations, Rotary, Gunners, anyway. And my mom was, a wonderful mother, also a bit busy businesswoman. So we went to church a lot. We went to all the Scripture Union camps, youth and lots, that kind of thing. And like I said, I just kind of wanted to, go along with all my high school friends and, explore the world, etc., etc. But my parents were always trying to, get me back on track and keep focused on the goal, etc. But eventually at 18, I went over to the UK for 12 years and lived a wonderfully crazy life there where I met Jason. But there wasn't much kind of Christianity in my life at that moment. In fact, I just don't recall much Christianity in general of my time there. Very, very little. It wasn't prevalent. I don't know if it was just where I was in my life or who I was surrounding myself with or just the area I was in general. But anyway, and fast forward a few years, we were back in Joburg. Then we went to live in West Africa, Sierra Leone. And by that point, I wanted to find a church. So I found a church, a tiny church of the Nazarene, which was like me and one other person, because we grew up in Church of the Nazarene. So this church in Sierra Leone, now in Freetown, was me, myself, and one other person in someone's lounge. It felt very strange for me to I want to start going to church and then to end up in that kind of setting. Then I found a kind of international church, started going there and enjoyed it. Although it was like a bit of an unusual setting because there was a lot of expats. There wasn't an actual pastor. There were just people sharing messages. And I did feel quite intimidated being not very spiritual and coming in. I don't know. I wasn't quite there yet. And eventually we got back to Joburg after a few years in Sierra Leone and having to escape Ebola and all sorts of crazy things, a whole other conversation. And I started going to Grace Point in Kyalami. And I started going there just because, it's a church I came across. I'm actually not quite sure how I found it, but my sister, my older sister, well, my only sister, her and her family were going to Rhema at the time. So I went there with them a few times and I realized, oh, hang on, this is okay. These people are normal. And I almost had like a warped vision of Christianity from when I was younger, that everything was quite like stiff and formal. And just seeing like my sister and her family, who were normal, as in like me, go to church and love God, but still be normal. I thought, okay, I think I can do this. So hence I started going to Grace Points. It was an amazing church. And then we didn't get too involved. We were just kind of, skirting a bit on the outside. And we then moved down to Cape Town a year later. So that's now 6 years ago. Or wait, hang on. Yeah, 7 years ago. And my husband found View Church, then View Church, now Revive. And we looked at all the different locations, and I quite liked the timings of all the table view ones. And I thought, no, that'll work really well. And he was like, no, we're going to go to this one. So we landed up at the Alcana High School campus. Yeah. And yeah, that's where we've been since, and obviously moved with the church since. And again, starting there, I mean, it felt great that it felt like a small, intimate church, and you weren't like, I loved Rhema, but I felt quite incognito. And I like the kind of intimacy of our church, where you can actually say hi to people and get to know people and run into people at West Coast Village or whatever the case is.
After church on a Sunday, Penny, you cannot go to Woolies at West Coast Village after church and not bump into a bunch of people.
I know, everyone's waiting for their rotisserie chicken, right?
That's it. But listen, there's so many interesting things there about the story, and there's been a lot of kind of movement in your guys' lives, and you've been around, and I'd love to ask a question about that. But firstly, just maybe you can tell us like a little bit more about what it was like to be a PK, like a pastor's kid. How do you feel, maybe if in any way that had maybe influenced your faith and how you saw faith? I don't actually chat to too many people whose parents were in ministry, so I'd love to maybe just hear from your perspective, like, you know, what that was like.
So I feel I'm quite fortunate to have been a PK. Okay, my dad no longer is a minister, but he's still in the church. Yeah. But he was always a lay pastor, so there was never that, you know, we went to church every single week at the same place. We would be at our home church. And there was always a very, very strong religious grounding in our home as a result, and in our lifestyles. So every morning we would read our devotional as a family and take turns to pray. Every Sunday we'd be at church. Every Friday night we'd be at youth. So there was a very strong grounding. And you actually forget it over time. And now, coming into a more kind of committed relationship with God, I realized, wow, I have actually got this amazing foundation that I never realized until now. Like, you come across these old school 80s like church songs, and I'm like, wow, I know all these verses, all these songs. The verses are written into songs. I'm like, how do I know these verses? And it's like a subconscious foundation that my parents built for us. So I'm actually so fortunate. And my mom, you know, loved God right to the end, and she lost a terrible battle with cancer, but she praised God till the moment she died. So I know I think they can actually count themselves, you know, fortunate to say, job done. Our goals are, you know, God-fearing children, and we've done good.
Yeah. I love that, man. Jeez, that's such a positive picture. And you're right. I mean, I think in the moment, you're kind of you're just doing life, and like, this is normal. But then I think when you get a bit older, you can reflect a little bit and think, geez, like, they really did put a lot in place for us to fall back on. And even, you know, I enjoyed what you said about, you know, you've got that, and then you spend some time just trying to figure, you know, sometimes you have to figure yourself out and figure life out, and sometimes you can drift a little bit, but when you do come back, it's like, geez, you know, there's this foundation, and it's there. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what it was like with all the moving and living in different places. I mean, UK and Sierra Leone, and then coming back to South Africa. What was that experience like for you? Even, you don't even have to take it from the perspective of being a Christian, even just as a person and a married couple. What did you find from those moments?
Okay, so I guess the UK paved the way for us a lot, and exposed us to a lot of the world, and we were able to travel a lot, work in amazing companies, and just gain an experience along the way. We partied a lot because we were young and we could. And I guess it's really good that we were able to get that out of our system. So that's good. But yeah, I think it's wonderful to be able to live in a place like the UK. And it was so first world in so many ways. But I think our goal, I mean, I only met Jay a few years before the end of my time there, but our goal was to come home to where we feel comfortable and where we can identify strongly with our culture here. So yeah, although, you know, we had that great experience, coming home was just amazing. Even though at the time after the UK, I went back to Joburg. I was pregnant with Sadie, so I wanted to be near my family. Jay was in Sierra Leone at that time. We had started business there. And I had Sadie in Joburg. Unfortunately, because of flights, Jay missed the birth. But anyway, we all have different sacrifices we have to make for our family. And then we didn't see him for about another 8 months. So Sadie and I went there when she was an 8-month-old baby, which was very interesting. And our time there was interesting. There, you know, obviously stuff like electricity and water are not a given. So you're on generator all the time, or your water pump packs up and then you're on, you know, bathing out of buckets and whatnot. So it was interesting. And, you know, owning your own business there in the private sector was challenging because, you know, you obviously your resources are very limited. But there are other benefits to living in a country like that. And we had some incredible experiences. We met wonderful people as well. And yeah, we were able to allow that experience to bring us home. And we're still working in all those West African countries. So we've got businesses in the other neighboring West African countries as well. But we base ourselves here. And yeah, I think the experience was very unconventional, but it was the right thing for that season in our life.
Yeah. I'd love to ask a little bit about business, because you're chatting a little bit about business there, and you and Jace are obviously kind of, you know, you're very busy people, high capacity people. How have, maybe a better question be, have you encountered maybe challenges with kind of being so involved and busy and being in the business world, and then you've also got, you know, your faith and trying to live a certain way and being Christ-centered? How is balancing those two things? How have you found it? Have there been the good times, sometimes that have been more challenging?
It's been a learning curve. Working in Africa is interesting, and, you know, combining your faith in that is challenging. So we've had to change the way a few of our systems work in order to do what feels right for our faith and in line with our faith. So yeah, it is quite interesting. But yeah, another thing we've had to also adjust to more recently actually is, you know, you've got this great these wonderful staff working for you, and you know them on a personal level, but at the end of the day, they're your staff, and you then have to realize, hang on, these people are not assets. They are people. They have fears, they have insecurities, they have anxieties, they've got the same kind of dreams and aspirations I do. So it's also been interesting bringing our faith into how we run our business.
Very good.
We've had to make some very recent decisions actually on people. And, you know, actually what I'd love to do in a business world is this, but this is a person, and they may be making these decisions because they're a person and they've got other things that I can't see going on.
Wow.
So it is great that we've got a different perspective to just give us a bit more grace in some situations, increase our ethics in other situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely keeps us on our toes.
It sounds like something it's like maybe an ever learning lesson, as the longer you're in church, and the longer, I mean, Christianity is that it's just this journey of becoming like Christ, and it's a daily journey. It's a journey that we never quite reach in this life, but it's awesome to hear that there are ways that you can bring that into the business and into the workplace, and with how you treat people. And the very kind of clear thing that I'm getting from you is that it's really influenced the way that you look at people, and loving people and caring for people and growing and learning with that. And I think that kind of, it leads me to a question that I think I've always wanted to ask you and your life group, because you guys just look like you are so for each other, and the community is so strong, and it feels like it's been like that for a long time. Maybe you can just share kind of briefly like what having a community like that does for you guys, like the positives and how you build each other up and how you walk through difficult seasons, because jeepers, there have been some individuals that have gone through some incredibly difficult moments, and this group kind of just stays this constant, it stays the strength, and I mean, I think it's an inspiration. You guys are always together. How has that been something that has been helpful for you and for everybody in that group?
Yeah, I think we're quite reliant on each other. You know, we've obviously got such a great bond after spending a lot of time together, and we tend to be quite committed to meeting together regularly, and if we can't, it's for good reason. We try and also just keep things lighthearted and keep things fun. Yes, we do focus on our series we follow, or in last night's case, speaking more about Sven's message, for example, and diving deep into that. Yeah, we meet up outside of our life group, and we keep things light and fun and silly. And I mean, like, for example, one of the roles in our life group is we've got someone who's our cheerleader, like sending positive, fun verses, jokes, etc. Normally God-centered, but sometimes not. But, you know, just to keep because we all also, you know, there is a life group, and it can be all focused on what's going on at the church, what's going on in our life group, etc. But actually, we want to dive deeper and find, you know, keep in tight comms with what's going on in people's lives.
What's really happening?
How did your show go? How did the meeting with your child's teacher go? And, you know, just kind of know each other on that level, so that when people do need each other, we're there for each other. It's not just, oh, please just, you know, tell me what I can do if you need any help. No, I know what help you need. You might not know what help you need right now because you're in the valley, but I can come in and provide something for you that I think you would need, or just be there for you, or just hold each other up in prayer. So we have been through some very hectic times, and some of us in our group are still going through very hectic seasons. And we all pretty much know what's going on in each other's lives thereabouts, and we share that. And it's great to be able to share that in a very, very, you know, vulnerable way, but in a secure setting where you know these people are not going to judge you and you're not going to seem like a weirdo. So I think it's so fantastic that we can be this close, and we can meet up for breakfasts, and we can. This morning I pulled in one of our girls and we went to go and butter sandwiches at West Riding for Salt, and just be part of each other's lives and drop off groceries if need be, and just love each other and commune with each other. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's vital to have that. I mean, I just think about people that are trying to do life by themselves. Go through the hardest moments, the toughest moments, trying to figure it out, have all the answers, always be strong. And it's so difficult. And at some point, you're just not going to have anything left to give. And that's why I think the Bible speaks so clearly, and Scripture speaks so clearly about the family of God and building one another up, sharpening one another, encouraging one another. It's so good to hear kind of how awesome that's been for you guys and in your story as well. And maybe even just as we start to close, just maybe a question. I love asking this question because everybody has a different answer, because we all have different life experiences. We've gone through different things. We've seen different things. God is always doing maybe something slightly different in each of our hearts. If you had like a piece of advice that you would give somebody, maybe in a similar season to you, with regards to marriage and parenting and work, and just a piece of advice that could help them just draw closer to God or draw closer to Jesus. And you could even think about it from a perspective of maybe somebody watching here today. If you just had one, like, hey, this is one thing that I would do, or one thing I'd focus on, what would that one thing be? And I know I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but I just love these questions.
I think we need to remember the saying, show me your friends and I'll show you your future, because we all have such a, you know, a diverse range of people around us, and people we socialize with, school parent groups, gym groups, work groups, etc., etc. And yes, it's wonderful to have all these different relationships with different people. And it's good to remember also that Jesus didn't only fellowship in the church, he sat with the sinners, and we need to also remember that balance. But if I just look back at the most wonderful moments of my life, it's just remembering that I've got the support of the people who are close to me spiritually, and the people who hold me up spiritually, who hold me accountable spiritually. And yeah, I just think that it's so special to have that group, and to focus on spending time with the people who are going to lead you into your eternal destiny. So
yeah, I love that, man. That's such good advice. And something I think we can all just take more from and understand, and really you got to be intentional with it. You're not just going to fall into a group of people that love you and care about your future. You've got to do the work, and you've got to invest into people as well, which I see so clearly in how you guys go about.
It takes so long. I mean, our life group isn't an overnight thing. It's a 5-year journey. So you do have to put in the time and the patience, because those close relationships don't happen overnight. I mean, you almost need to wait. You know, it's when people are in their valleys or in their highs, whatever, that the closeness happens, because that's when you become reliant on other people, and you become reliant on God, and you become reliant on people bringing you closer to God and encouraging you to stay close to God.
Man, that's so good. Penny, thank you so much. Really appreciate the chat and the time that you've made for us. And our hope really is that whoever's watched us today can be encouraged, can be inspired by Penny's story, and just remember that your story is powerful, it's unique. It's the work that God is doing in your life, and it can encourage somebody else. So wherever you get a moment or an opportunity today, for everybody that's watching, take moments to share your story, take moments to speak to people about what God is doing in your life, and use that to encourage and inspire the people in your life. But Penny, thank you so much. You're amazing. We love having you part of our church, and we can't wait to see what the rest of 2023 holds for you and your awesome family.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Cheers, everybody.